Video is pretty much to just give you a quick update on the situation with the 13-year-old boy who got beat up by the local police officer. I actually reached out to a couple people trying to find out some things, and I also went down to the Albion City Council meeting yesterday, and I'm going to share with you some of the footage from that meeting. One of the things that came up is that Albion Police Department did actually fire the gentleman. They weren't prompted by anybody. They fired him on his own, even after the case was threw out by the district attorney or something. But some fishy stuff is still at play because as you're going to hear, one of the council ladies brings out is that there were actually more tapes more footage that should have been brought up as evidence, but it was only one tape that was brought up as evidence. Now, I don't know if that changes the scenario or anything like that, but you're going to hear firsthand from her mouth, and you're going to hear from the chief of police as well, because he actually counters it a little bit, and you're going to hear from somebody else as well. But this is really just a quick update so you guys can kind of get an understanding of where we're at right now. I do have some other things that I want to talk about, but I'm going to wait on that because I want to try to verify a couple of things, and I want to make sure I'm not just putting out some bogus information. But yeah, I mean, it's no matter what way you look at it, the guy was wrong, and now everybody is calling for why isn't the officer being charged? Why is the young man the only one that's charged? Why is he charged and the officer not charged? I mean, that's a good question to ask, because no matter what, you sitting up there punching a 13-year-old boy. It doesn't make sense, especially when you already had a relationship. You already knew the young man. You've been there plenty of times, and you even knew that he was mentally challenged. So that's definitely a good question to be asked. And so, without further ado, I'm going to show you this clip, and then we'll just go from there.
Concerns of residents of this community regarding the videotape that's been released involving a minor child and two Albion officers who were present that day. I was hoping that the city would be proactive and address the community in some way. We've been here over an hour and a half, and I think that even we could have gotten 5 votes to change the agenda, so somebody at the beginning of the meeting, and I would have loved to do it, had said, we know what's going on, we're aware of it, and we will look into it. Just some kind of reassurance. So I'm as a council member, and I'm a part of you all, and we are a family, but I'm disappointed in our lack of response. I also have to say, I'm a mother, and I think about my son a lot, and that's a whole nother issue that I won't get into right now. But so let me just get into some of the concerns. I read the statement that was issued on the website by the Albion Department of Public Safety. I'm not sure who drafted this. It's dated on May 1st. Today is May 6th. Council was never notified that this statement was drafted and released, and I'm disappointed by that. I think we should have at least been made aware that somebody had requested some kind of statement. I read it over, and it mentions the use of force policy and the force report form, which is great. But this is where it's dangerous sometimes not to make council aware or provide council with information, because you get it from the community and you have nothing to counter it with. So in this statement, it talks about a patrol lieutenant who looked at the form and watched the video footage of the officer's body camera. Again, there were 2 officers. So each officer should have had a body cam. Therefore, there should have been 2 videos. So I'm not sure which camera footage was reviewed by the patrol lieutenant during this reporting and quote-unquote investigation of the incident. But what I can tell you what I did learn and confirm today. Only 1 videotape was released to the investigating agency, and it ended up at the prosecuting attorney's office. He had 1 video, and there should be 2. And unless there's a policy that says that, you know, the Department of Public Safety has discretion in what evidence they turn over to an investigating agency, then we have a problem. Because
I can tell you right now that is
Okay.
not true. I turned over 4 videos to the state police.
okay, how many ended up in the prosecutor's office is what I'm trying to figure out.
That's up to the state police. I had nothing to do with that investigation at that point.
Okay, well, what I can tell you to know, what I know as fact, is there was 1 video in the prosecuting attorney's office. And so if what I'm hearing from Chief Kip is actually factual, then there's a problem. And we need to look into it. You know, I read this statement and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I can't support this unless I know this is fact. I'm not gonna support somebody or some statement that I don't even know who drafted on behalf of the Albion Department of Public Safety. And you can look upset if you want, but this is where I'm at. I am for doing the right thing and I don't care who it is. But I am not going to support a statement or some facts that I don't know to be true. And what I am learning is if you don't ask questions and take things on face value, you'll be fooled 90% of the time. So what I am going to say is, Albion community, we hear your concerns. I hear your concerns. I am just as disturbed as the people who reached out to me last night through today. And we are better than this. I, born and raised in this community, we are much better than this. So we need to roll up our sleeves, have some tough conversations if that's what it takes. But we need to, number 1, address it. Number 2, make sure it never happens again. If it does happen, we need to have some policies in place that are very specific so we as council know what to expect. Because again, we weren't given heads up that this was coming out. But somebody knew because there was a statement released. So, and I can also say this too, that I learned. So the video that was at the prosecutor's office was actually the body cam video of the officer who was not seen punching the minor child, okay? I learned that there was a FOIA request submitted to the Albion Police Department for a copy of the officer's video who was seen punching the minor child, and the price tag on that was close to $200. I don't know if that's even normal or whatever, but I just want to put it out there. So there's the tape is here and it exists, but there's like almost a $200 price tag on it. So I'm putting that out there as well. So I just hope moving forward, council, we make sure that we know and we're comfortable that things were handled per policy and within policy, and let's heal our community and let's do what we need to do. Thank you.
Councilmember Williamson.
Good evening. Couple of things I want to say. I'm not a council member to stoke suspicions of the police department.
Let him speak, please.
Point of order all you want to, it's still fair.
I also want to provide I would like to remind the council that I was quite polite and listened to everyone's statements tonight, and I would expect that my fellow council member would do that as well. I would like to give Chief Kip the opportunity to explain the price tag on the video, because I had a question about that as well that I had reached out to you to answer. Could you just confirm like why the expense is related to the video? Because there's a pricing formula that's done, correct?
The price for the video is the cost it takes to put the video together, basically. The video had to be completely redacted to remove the juvenile's face and any mention of the juvenile's name out of it, which took almost a week to get done. We had to get an extension on it, so that's the cost. If the council chose to waive that cost, the council could choose to do that to release the video.
The other thing I'd like to clarify about that is I did some homework today. The video footage released by the Detroit News Channel was not the video related to Albion's release, and in fact was a separate video obtained through the court system. So that is why the minor's name and other things were mentioned during the altercation on the video. So I'd like to point out that Albion Public Safety followed all policy, internal procedure in making sure that they took care of identity,
Please.
identity and respect for the family and people involved in that video. The other thing, since coming on council, this was a brand new situation for me. It seemed as though as soon as I got on council, we received an email that said an officer had been placed on administrative duty. A few months later, an officer had been relieved of that duty. I'd also like to point out that this incident was self-reported. This wasn't a familiar complaint. So this wasn't that a citizen brought this forward. This was that the police, because of their own policies at Albion Public Safety, reported this themselves. This was internal policing and review done by our public safety officers to make sure that if an incident like this ever occurred, which we can't think of many times that this has happened, that we would report it and hold ourselves accountable. I'd like to point out that the officer in question has been relieved of duty as of like March or something after a hearing following the proper procedure that all officers must go through when accused of situations like this. So that officer is no longer an officer and also no longer a danger to the public. And then I would also like to point out that I am sickened by the video that was taken. I do not like watch things like this. I felt a responsibility to watch it, just like everyone else probably has in the community, because I knew there were going to be questions about it. The actions of the officer in question, by all accounts, were incredibly irresponsible, dangerous, reckless, despicable, and disgusting. And he should be held accountable. I would like to point out that we, as far as an internal investigation are concerned and a criminal investigation done by the Michigan State Police, had referred the case to the prosecuting attorney, the only person in the county able to make an accusation and charge that through the court system. We all can say that that decision probably wasn't the best decision because it resulted in 0 charges for the officer. But that was not a decision that the city of Albion or that the Albion Public Safety made. That was a decision that the prosecuting attorney made. And I think if you read tonight's version of the Detroit, WDIV Connect Detroit's article, you will notice that it heavily focuses on the fact that these things made it somewhere and then didn't go any further, and that was to the prosecuting attorney's office. I also want to reiterate my respect and appreciation for Albion Public Safety, as I know that the last 24 hours have been a complete whirlwind for a police force that has gone out of its way in this community to do something called community policing. They have been in every neighborhood. They show up every time there's a warm weekend with water. They try to make sure they're talking to kids. I remember people who are on the force now as a kid being in my school talking about, I'm not here to hurt you, I'm here to help. And that is something that happened in every school in Albion for as long as I can remember and as many of you can remember. And people can detract from that. I'm going to stand firm and support the Albion Public Safety until given reason not to. This very unfortunate and tragic incident does not waive my respect for the public safety officers in Michigan or in Albion, especially for Chief Kip and especially for those who are on the beat now who are making sure that we're safe. This incident was terrible. There needs to be accountability for the people involved in that situation, and I think that accountability needs to be in the right place. And I think any effort to disparage the good men and women of law enforcement in Albion at the moment who are not involved in this situation is a mistake. With that, I yield.
Other council members have comments? Councilmember Brown.
Thank you. So I just want to say, and I'm not going back and forth, we can respectfully agree to disagree, that's fine. I know when I was here on March 1st, you made some very accusatory remarks to me, and, you know, sometimes you get in the heat of the moment. It's fine. Anyway, I will say this, it is not my position to disparage the Albion Department of Public Safety. It is my hope to get to the truth and the bottom of what really happened and how it was handled. And if it could have been handled better, then let's implement policies to make sure that it will be better if it ever happened again, which I seriously hope it doesn't. I will say this too, and then I'm going to close. I know that in the news report said this, the only person charged was the minor, and I know it takes police incident reports to be submitted in order for charges to be brought. And I also don't see how two officers on the same scene could have conflicting incident reports and all those charges be assessed to that young man. So we need to be looking at the process and make sure that things were done fairly and within policy. Thank you.
Okay, it is a very disturbing incident that took place. Okay, I think you summed up the fact that the officer is no longer a member of the force. I know that Chief Kipp, I believe you were looking at internal policies and making sure that everything was followed and where we can improve those policies. That's underway.